Hey there, guys, and welcome to another Friday Night Flock Talk. I am Jack Pine with High Red Bird, and tonight I have a very special guest with me. We have Daniel Sigmund. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm good. I don't know how special I am, but I'm good. I'm meeting you guys from a festive holiday occasion out here in Sugar Land.
Very nice. Now, Robin Sullivan from the Leather Elves is actually traveling holidays right now, so that's why she's not available for tonight's live stream. But Danny is here to discuss these topics with us, and he is actually very, very qualified. Oh, look, that's us.
Looky there.
Oh, and that 75 must be the current temperature because I feel like it was warmer than that today.
Yeah.
Now, tonight we're going to be talking about things that we wish we knew before getting a bird. And there are a wide variety of things that factor into that. There are so many things that even if you do your research, things to learn in bird ownership. But before we jump into that, we do have a couple of reminders for you guys. So first and foremost, we want to remind you guys that you want to pay attention. We do these Friday Night Flock Talks every single Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you like the Leather Elves page on Facebook, or if you like the High Redbird group on Facebook, you'll get notifications when those things happen. We also encourage you guys to subscribe to the High Redbird YouTube channel. That way, if you miss out on any of the live streams, if you're busy, if you're not like Danny, willing to jump on a live stream in the middle of a party, if you want to hold off, you can always rewatch those videos. You can also rewatch any of the videos we've done in the past. I am startled to see how many hours of content there are that we have covered. Then there's also going to be the videos that I do on my own. So things like the Avian Advent Calendar Challenge. Every single day for this Advent calendar, I'm opening up a new box of parrot toy parts and making a brand new toy with the goal of teaching people new techniques for making their toys, things to look out for in terms of safety, utilization, having a goal when it comes to making your parrot toy parts. So we definitely encourage you to check those things out. Now, you can always follow me and Robin on Instagram. It's going to be the High Red Bird and the Leather Elves pages on Instagram, respectively. We always share a ton of photos, videos of animals, animal enrichment, and of course, those flyers to let you guys know what topics are going to be coming up in the Friday Night Flock Talks. We did want to let you know that we have Parrot Festival coming up. And Danny, would you like to tell us a little bit about Parrot Festival?
Parrot Festival, like it says on our advertising, is the most joyous gathering of parrot enthusiasts in the world, and we're glad to be able to do it again this year. It is extraordinary. I went for the first time in 2008, and I haven't missed one since. And it's been, I came there and had a wonderful time, and now I'm intimately involved in making it happen. It was just so much fun. So and you learn so much. Parrot Festival made me the parrot owner that I am today.
So Parrot Festival, for anyone who is unfamiliar, it is a 3-day educational conference. We have speakers from all around the world talking on a variety of topics, things like training, enrichment, general husbandry, conservation. We have a vendor hall with some of the best parrot suppliers from around the country. So things like toys, cages, or just general parrot accessories. If you need things like t-shirts or jewelry or any of those fun things to let people know that you are a parrot person, in case you did not make it abundantly clear to them, you'll be able to find all of that at Parrot Festival. If you'd like to know more about Parrot Festival, you can visit www.parrotfestival.org. You can also scan that QR code that is on your screen right now, and that will give you a little bit more information about Parrot Festival. We certainly hope to see you guys there. It really is a lot of fun. Honestly, one of the best things about Parrot Festival in my opinion, is the fact that there are so many people who get it, who have parrots and who live with parrots. So the struggles that you're facing, or the challenges you're facing, or the joys you get out of having those birds in your life. This is a gathering of people who will understand that you can make friends with and talk to. So it's definitely something I encourage people to check out. Yeah, and Danny is currently at a Christmas party. He is coming to you from a Christmas party. I am very very jealous of his glass of wine. I will not lie. Now, one other thing we wanted to let you guys know about, even though Robin isn't here, Robin and Jess Uliano will be hosting another session of Parrot Academy. Now, Parrot Academy, and you can get that information right there on your screen. Parrot Academy is an 8-week course designed to help new bird owners think through everything that goes into getting a bird. So things like making sure your bird is healthy, organizing veterinary visits, caging and housing for your bird, husbandry, general husbandry, including things like diet, training, enrichment. All of these things, which can be a little bit overwhelming to first-time bird owners or new bird owners, will be covered in this session. In the last session, Robin and I did. We actually had people who have had parrots for years who still were able to get value and learn things about how to tailor their approach specifically for their birds. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Since I did help Robin develop the curriculum for Parrot Academy, I do have to say, if you know anybody who is getting a bird, who just got a bird, Parrot Academy might be a great Christmas present for them. And you do have uh, about a week before Christmas still. Wait, no. Yes, you have about a week before Christmas. I didn't know what day we were on for a second. You still have time. You could go ahead, sign them up, print out that for them, put it in a nice little box, wrap it up. It's a really great gift. It's a really easy way to give that. So we definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Danny, why are you laughing at me?
Jack, I always laugh at you. You're just so much. You're so pleasant. You make me smile. What can I say?
Oh, I love that. Danny, he's like, oh, you're just so present. Drink my wine.
Exactly.
All right. Well, for our topic tonight, um, things I wish I knew before having a bird. I am going to start this by saying, if there is anything else that ties into this, if there's anything this makes you guys think of, we definitely want to hear about it. Make sure you're putting those things in the chat, because we all have different birds and we all have different experiences. And so I had actually been working at the Houston Zoo in the bird department for several years before I got my first parrot at home. So I definitely have a different perspective than someone like Danny, who here, Danny, tell us a little bit about how you got into parrots.
So I'm also a little bit of an outlier because I'm a gigantic nerd, and I love to read. And I was so fascinated by the stories about Alex, the African gray, that I thought, man, I think I'd really like to have a parrot. And so I started reading about them and found out about all of this um, crazy stuff about birds and what they do and what they don't do and how they're good and how they're bad and how and whatever. And I thought, well, I should just wait and I should just wait. And then 10 years later, I realized that by any measure, 10 years is not impulsive. And so I should go ahead and probably buy a bird. Um, but even still, with all that research, there were things that maybe were a surprise uh, that I, it would have been good to know. But yeah, so I did lots and lots of research, but I was curious about them for many, many, many years. So,
Well, and we always encourage people doing your research before you get a bird, before you get any animal. What's going on? Oh, you finally, it took you
Nick
that
put the
long.
Carolina. Yes, it took me that long.
11 minutes for you to notice. Good job, Nick.
Yes.
You got to hide it a little better next time. Um, we always encourage people to do their research before getting any type of animal. The more research you do, the better suited you are going to be to take proper care of that animal. But even with as much research as you can do, there are still a ton of things to learn when it comes to having a bird in your house. So, we wanted to cover some of the things that come up most commonly. And the first one we wanted to talk about, because people think they have an idea of this and they really don't, is the intelligence of parrots. I think parrots are we know parrots are smart, but a lot of people don't realize just how smart they are. If you see a bird that is doing behavior on cue, different vocalizations on cue, you see that that's, you know, a really fun thing and it's an exciting thing, but that intellect can be used in so many different ways. I mean, Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I was stunned. I mean, I knew they were smart, but I think for me, what shocked me, and again, you know, I'm not saying that like your parrots are going to be like talking to you about Nietzsche or things like that, but it's shocking at how they can actually at times use language in context, even. I, that really surprised me, and I think also how how they need to have their intelligence engaged. I mean, just how much of that requires you to be a part of it. I mean, you really can't. They're not something you just put in a cage. They really have to be part of your life. And I didn't understand how much part of your life they would be, because it's really easy to say, like, oh yeah, you need to spend 2 hours with your bird a day, or whatever. But actually, for me, it's much more than that. But it's together time. It's time actually interacting between the species, and I didn't realize how much of that there would actually be. So
Yeah, and so with the intelligence piece, there's what I feel is a lot of good and a lot of bad that, well, not bad, but there's um, good and not as good that comes along with that. So obviously, when you're working with a very intelligent animal, there's a lot of training potential there. You can train them to do quite a lot of things because they can pick up on training very, very easily. They typically have a ton of personality, which can be a lot of fun. And they're also just going to generally be fun to work with. All of these things about them, the way that they pick up things so quickly, the way that they decide to interact, it's a lot of fun. But on the flip side of that, um, there are some challenges you can face from their problem solving skills. I know a lot of people who have birds that cannot be housed in certain types of enclosures or with certain types of door latches or door mechanisms because their birds have figured them out. Uh, Grayson, the umbrella cockatoo, which we've shown you guys numerous times, you guys have seen him doing training, things like basic crate training, station training, target training, scale training. And he does make everything look really, really easy. He is a very smart bird. He has also learned at this point to undo 5 different types of latches. We are one step away. If he figures out one more type of latch and how to undo it, he is going to have to get combination locks. And I don't entirely trust that he won't be able to figure those out. I've also had to modify cages. We all seen the cage where there's the little door and then there's a piece of metal that hangs over it. You're supposed to lift the metal and the door swings out. I have cockatoos that can figure that out. I have had to put giant pieces of wire that you then have to lift up the whole piece before you lift up the flap to open the door. So that problem solving that we see in our birds can present a lot of challenges. What do you think, Danny?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, that particular kind of cage we had to modify also because our macaw very quickly figured out anytime he wanted out, he just needed to go through there. And so we'd be, at work and all of a sudden get pings from our cameras, and our macaw would be like chasing the cats around the house, and of course the cat's running and screaming and fury and murder. Um, but the yeah, the cages, the escapism, that's a real thing. But also it presents, the intelligence also presents a challenge in another way, in that they're smart enough they're smart enough to figure you out. They're smart enough to get around the ways you might trick another animal into doing what you want it to do. And so training becomes really important, because if you want to get them in their cage, you're either going to have to overpower them, which is not good for the relationship, or try to learn an agreement between the two of you about training and how that and interaction is going to happen. It becomes really, really important in a way that I wasn't. It really has to become. It's again, not Nietzsche, not philosophy, but it is a conversation and interaction between you and the bird to get it back into the cage where it needs to be. It really becomes a negotiation, and you have to learn how to do that.
Well, and so Danny, you hit on a really important point there. When it comes to the intelligence of animals, when it comes to the intelligence of parrots in particular, I think one thing a lot of new owners can discredit is the opinions of their animal. I have parrots that have very strong opinions, stronger opinions than I was expecting. And by very strong opinions, I mean sometimes trying to get that Quaker parrot back into its enclosure can feel like being in college and having that discussion with that guy who just took, you know, 2 classes of a philosophy class. And no, you are wrong. I am going to tell you everything about why you are wrong. And that is not going to happen. And that to me is what it can feel like when it comes to interacting with some of our birds, that they're just very, very passionate and set on their opinions. And of course, that's going to be something that's tied to their intellect. Um, and we're getting a lot of people commenting as well. So we have Karen Anderson with Avian Suites. She was saying that at Avian Suites, they actually have a list of the Houdini birds that they have that are kept at Avian Suites. So keeping that information can be really, really important. And sometimes that is individual specific. I mean, obviously, all parrots are problem solvers. Some of them do have a little bit more of a natural proclivity. And okay, so Ray padlocks all the openings. We actually have quite a few people that use locks on their cages, which one of the reasons why we ask you guys to add into the comments, knowing how other people are handling these challenges definitely helps. And knowing that some people face that can definitely help some people. So we love hearing from you guys about all of these different things. Uh, so the next thing we have to talk about when it comes to parrots, and the next thing I can tell you, you are not prepared for if you are getting a parrot for the first time, is the sheer amount of mess that a parrot is capable of generating. And so I've told you guys, we always have an outline for the evening. We go through all the different points we want to talk about. We'll include statistics or links to information if that's important. We'll give links to Nick if he needs to put stuff up on the screen. Let me tell you right now, when we were writing this outline for mess, what it says under the outline is mess. More than you were expecting, more than that, even more. Um, Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, they have actually, and they have a sort of a joie de mess. They have this joy in making a mess that is just who they are. I love. So part of the thing we do when with my macaw, we just hang out together. But he always loves to have like a walnut and like eat it over my shoulder. But he not only eats, tears apart the nut, eats a little bit of it, and throws the rest on the couch. but then loves to just completely disassemble the walnut shell into these just micro pellets of mess. They just, and he has fun doing it. And they have no, like, one thing I came to was, everything in nature has a role, right? And parrots are actually dispersers. They are part of their ecological function is to get food from the canopy down to the ground. And there's lots of food around, and so they'll just eat what they want, throw the rest away, and thank goodness for everybody who lives on the ground because they've got that food down on the ground. So the birds are quite happy to eat a piece and throw the rest to someone else. They don't have, like for me, I grew up, and it's like you have to clean your plate. There's no leftovers. There's no mess. Birds don't. They actually are. They're joyful about throwing things around. They love it. So, and just with play, I was actually mentioning to Jack earlier this week. We gave our son Conyer a, not a raw coconut, but it's that one of those coconuts that have the husks haven't been removed, so that all of the husk and fuzz is all over it. Good Lord, you should see her cage. I mean, she has just totally disassembled that coconut, and so the fibers are all in the cage and all over the floor, and man, just their ability, their sheer ability to generate mess goes beyond all experiences that you can come up with. So
Yeah, and I think so. Like as we mentioned, as Diane is saying right now, parrots are designed to be messy. They are going to help to scatter those food items. If they're fruits that have seeds, parrots destroying them and dropping the seeds everywhere helps to repopulate those areas. Uh, Parrots are also not going to eat every single part of a particular plant because some of the parts of plants are going to be very, very difficult to digest. They are going to be a lot of weight for birds to hold on to if they tried to fully process all of those things. So, part of how they handle that is selectively choosing what parts of a plant they're going to eat, the things that are nutrient dense, the things that they can process faster, are going to be things that they will be inclined to eat first. And that's also part of why things seem to go straight through your bird so quickly. They are trying to keep that weight down because the heavy you are, the harder it is for you to fly away. You can't fly somewhere new to find a new food source. You can't necessarily fly away from predators if they show up. So it's all about survival for them. And it's great in the forest, but it's not necessarily great in a household, or at least it is a challenge that you have to take on.
So actually, Olivia just posted, and I totally, yes, totally flipped my mind. I didn't realize how much the parrot mess would defeat my expensive, fancy, yuppie Dyson vacuum cleaner. And she said, the shop. Yes, the shop vac is your friend. Yeah, we have a shop vac because it's really what we need to take on the parrot stuff. The Dyson is fine for normal people, but if you're a bird person, yeah, you best get that shop vac because it's crazy. So
Well, and it definitely is one of those things. There is going to be some variation depending on species. I know Janice was talking earlier about things like canaries. Seed eating birds like that, canaries, budgies, cockatiels, they're going to leave those seed husks in a variety of places. They only eat that inside of the seed. So, as Adrian said, finches can make a lot of mess. So, that can be something that you want to keep in mind. Birds like cockatoos, I'm sure Shelly can tell us, because of the way that they produce that dust to condition their feathers, cockatoos can produce quite a bit of mess, a dustiness. I had one of my umbrella cockatoos. He had feathers that had fully erupted out of his crest. He needed me to go through and remove the feather sheaths off of those feathers. And in about 3 minutes, I looked like I had hugged a chalkboard. It really was that much dust, and that is with regular bathing and showers and large water bowls that my birds can completely climb into. There are ways that you can mitigate that mess, and there you should be mitigating that mess. You should be working to keep things as clean as possible. At work, one of the things that I tell my team, which they sometimes don't like to hear, they sometimes look at me like I'm crazy. Um, I tell them that the goal is to create the illusion that our animals do not poop. And I think that's really important. It's part of keeping your animals nice and healthy, keeping them in a good environment. And we are getting a lot of recommendations on things to pay attention to if you are looking for things like a shop vac. So if you guys are looking for Christmas presents for the parrot lovers in your life, we're actually getting a lot of
Ho, ho,
recommendations
ho!
in the comment section as well. Things like those stainless steel locks that Shelly was talking about earlier. Large hose uh, shop vacs with really nice attachments. All of those things are going to be really, really nice things that you can have. Um, and so Georgia said millet travels everywhere. Um, Honestly, for me, one of the things that I find in the most random places are the tiny little downy feathers. And I think part of the issue with the tiny little downy feathers is that they are so lightweight. When your bird loses them, if they flap or anything, they can go halfway across the house on that alone. And then they can get electrically charged. And if they're at the side of TVs, a lot of electronic devices. There are just so many different things that they can end up next to, or they end up in the most random places. I have found downy feathers inside the fridge, which I still to this day don't know how that happened.
Others, I guess that counts as mess too. But yeah, I didn't realize that I was going to have to find something to do with tons and tons of feathers twice a year every time they molted. Never thought about that before I was getting my bird.
Right, and it's oh god, that alone is one of those things, those the feathers that you get from your birds, and if it's your first time getting a bird, we've all been there. We do the thing where it's like I'm going to get a vase and I'm going to set up, tail feathers and flight feathers in the vase. It's going to be this really pretty arrangement. Well, cut to 2 or 3 years later, it's like, oh dear God, where am I going to put more feathers? I've got a vase there and a vase there and a vase there. And I actually gave away a bunch of them. And I have a bunch of them that I use to decorate a Christmas tree. And so finding ways to use those feathers can be a really big challenge. Now, one of the things that we have at Parrot Festival every year, you'll be able to see them in our vendor hall. There's a group that collects feathers for Native Americans, since for a lot of Native Americans, the feathers of things like macaws can have a lot of cultural significance. So finding an environmentally friendly way for them to get those feathers is a great option. So that's definitely something you can look into. There is a way to use those things, but I promise you, when it comes to a parrot, however much mess you were expecting there to be, there will be more. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is, and it kind of ties to the mess, and that is going to be the destructiveness of parrots. Because we know parrots have the potential to be a little bit destructive. We know they can, take out things like woodwork in your house, furniture in your house. Um, we got to remember that parrots have significant bite strength. They have a very good, very manipulative beak. They can do so many different things with them. Um, I like to equate it to having a multi-tool on your face. I think that's pretty much what a parrot beak is, because you can see them use it in so many different ways. It is scissors and tweezers and a screwdriver and an Allen wrench. And honestly, they can get through things that I can't even seem to figure out, or can't even begin to process how I would figure them out. And they have already accomplished them. with that really ridiculous beak. And then, of course, that intellect that we were talking about. That all together can be a pretty dangerous combination. And I will say, in my experience, parrots can be destructive far faster than you think they can. And I'll give you guys an example because I've actually shown this off. Grayson, the umbrella cockatoo, he is actually the reason that I have a travel brooder box because I had brought Grayson in his travel carrier. His travel carrier normally has multiple latches because, again, he's figured them out. But I had to go back out and get one more thing. It was a minute, maybe 2 minutes. I'm like, there's just the basic latch on his travel carrier. How much trouble can he get into in a minute? In that much time, he let himself out of his travel carrier, went across the feed room, found the styrofoam chick incubator where I had chicken eggs incubating, and turned half of it into decorative Christmas snow in the course of a minute. Now, luckily, I was able to use the electron. He hadn't destroyed the electronics, so I was able to then repurpose those into a brooder box that I can use if I have to hand raise baby parrots. So Grayson isn't watching right now, so he actually kind of did me a favor with that. But we're not going to tell him that because I would have preferred him to not destroy my incubator. But Danny, what do you think? Have you experienced demolition with your parrots?
Oh, yeah, I have some scars at my house, a few doors that have had a little bit of wood removed from them, but I don't let them. Um, you know what? I think we can set our birds up for success or failure, and I try to lead them another direction. Like I said, we have a couple of scars on our door frames, but it's all as soon as it starts to happen, I try to start redirecting them somewhere else. But yes, and those both of those things happened when I was not fully engaged and paying attention. It's like you give them a second and they will start just tearing stuff up. Um, and but yeah, you have to. I find that I have less trouble with that when I stay engaged and can redirect their their energy. But yes, my goodness, it will happen. We our the other thing too is we give them things to destroy instead of the things we don't want them to destroy. Um, and, like our carriers and things like that. Sometimes they would chew them up or whatever. Well, we would then put wood and cardboard in the carrier, and they'd rather chew that up than the carrier. So there are ways that we can read. But yeah, if you're not prepared, and yes, I was not prepared for how quickly that can evolve. So I now we always are thinking, what can we give them to destroy instead of X, Y, or Z? And there's a question there's a thread that was going down here in the chat where they were saying, should we bring our feathers to Parrot Festival? And I think if Georgia, who's watching, can let us know. I don't think Steve James is coming this year, the guy who works with the Native American feathers and stuff, but maybe she could get in touch with him and see if we could get feathers to him for those people that can come to Parrot Festival. Yeah, if he, it's a great and kind thing they do with that. So
Yeah. So, um, yeah. So back to the topic of destructiveness
sorry,
in birds. Oh, you're fine. No,
I
definitely
just
want to make
saw I
sure
saw it
people
going
have that
on, and I was like, ooh,
information.
we should acknowledge that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I want to be clear. When I tell that story about Grayson and I tell it with exasperation and like, seriously, why did you do this? It was my fault. I want to be clear on that. That is why Grayson has multiple latches to his travel carrier. And I didn't do them in the name of being a little easier or a little more convenient for me. So there are ways that you can mitigate this destructiveness. And one of the most important things to think about is, or rather, is thinking about it. Having a plan in place. asking yourself, what is the worst thing that this bird could do in this situation? And we did have someone who was asking, yeah, Grayson is an umbrella cockatoo. I've shown him on here before. He's a really good bird that does quite a bit of training. So I use him for presentations for kids, field trips. We go to libraries, we go to schools. He does quite a bit with that. We've shown you guys the basics of training, so target training, scale training, station training with him. He is an absolutely phenomenal bird, but he did take advantage of me not really paying attention to what he would be able to do in that situation. So thinking about
Yep.
what could
Well,
happen
yeah.
is going to
I
be
I,
something.
I just yeah, I just want to parrot, no pun intended, but I guess reinforce something that you said with that when Grayson did those things, it was your fault. With my birds, anytime something at my house gets damaged, I never blame it on the birds. It is always my fault because I know their predilection. I know what they're designed to do. And if I don't take that into account, it is not the fault of the bird. It is my fault for not preparing for it. I never assign blame to them. They're just being who they are. That's it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to address. That yeah, you can't blame your bird in that situation. What you can do is plan for it. You can make sure that your bird doesn't have access to those things that you're attached to that you don't want them to destroy. Things like proper enrichment, making sure that they are stimulated, making sure they have items that they are allowed to destroy is going to be a great option. And I know, addressing all of these things can be a little bit challenging. Parrot Academy is probably the closest equivalent to that Parrot Kindergarten that someone was asking for in the chat. So Parrot Academy, again, it's designed for new bird owners, but there's still plenty of information that experienced bird owners can get out of that. It covers a variety of aspects of avian husbandry, things to think about when you're getting a bird. So, medical care and quarantining a new bird, finding an appropriate housing situation for them, figuring out training, enrichment, husbandry, all of that will be covered in Parrot Academy. So you can visit www.theleatherelves.net to find out more about that, or you could just scan that QR code that's on your screen right now. But Parrot Academy is a great option for new bird owners. At Parrot Festival, we also have a 1 day course called Parrots 101. Again, something that is going to be geared for brand new bird owners. So it's going to have things like the basics of parrot care. That's going to be a class that Robin and I have taught several times already. It's going to have things like what to expect at your first avian veterinary visit. And we have veterinarians come in and explain the things to expect, what you should be looking for. We have different sessions on building easy toys, getting weights, different things that are going to come into play to just make parrot keeping a little bit easier and by extension, a little more fun. So those are definitely going to be some things that you want to check out if you'd like to know a little bit more about those things. And again, both of those would be great options as Christmas presents for the new parrot owner in your life. Um, I am trying to help people come up with Christmas ideas because I am still getting Christmas presents, and please don't be in the same situation as me. I want everybody else to say, nope, we're done. Everything's done. Every list is checked. I get to just sit back and drink wine like Danny. Okay, Bonnie, I'm not really understanding what what you're meaning by which one. Um, So they are separate, the Parrot Academy and the Parrots 101. Parrot Academy is just an online class. Parrots 101 is in person at Parrot Festival, which is going to be in Houston at the end of January. So if there's a little bit, oh, okay, you're talking to somebody else. Got it. um, All right. Well, I'm going to tell you guys right now, it could be a lot going on trying to pay attention to the chat and yeah, the butterflies, the butterflies. Um, One of the challenges is realizing that the recording is flipped. So even though on my screen the butterflies go this way, I know when they fly, I have to make my finger go this way, so I follow the butterflies. So it just has to be mirrored. So that being said, this is not things you wish you knew before somehow or other getting talked into a year and a half of live stream sessions with Robin.
Yeah, but
Um,
see, it came about because of the birds. So see, that's another thing. You didn't know that your birds would get
okay,
you on TV. So
right. Well, and I think that is something this is not on the outline, but this is something that we probably should address. Um, at some point in your bird ownership, avicultural experience, I am relatively confident you will be the crazy bird person. No matter how sane you are, no matter how you approach it, there is somebody who is going to say, "Oh yeah, that's the person. They got birds." Um, it happens, and sometimes there are things where it's like, hey, am I coming across as the crazy bird person? Do I need to rein it in a little bit? And sometimes it's just fun to be the crazy bird person.
I mean,
Like, yes,
I
I
was
am going to
just
talk to you about a bunch of different birds.
yeah, I've just been at this party and I've already been the crazy bird person a couple of times. They're like, "How many birds do you have?" And I tell them like, "Oh," and there it is. There she is, the Carolina conure. So yes, very crazy bird person. Yes. So
Well, I mean, Danny is the one that dropped everything in the middle of a Christmas party to do a live stream about birds.
of course,
And I'll
I
tell you
well,
guys right
of course
now,
that's what one does.
um, well, one of the things that I like to say when people ask, how many birds do you have? Enough. I have the birds that I have. I also have Gunner. Come here. Why are you looking sad? You got to come up here. You got to say hi. Otherwise, Diana's going to be sad that she didn't get to see you. So we do have Gunner. He's actually a little bit upset because I moved his blankets, and he prefers to lie on the blankets. He actually likes to lie on a blanket on the couch and then have another blanket over him, and then he also needs a pillow. And he's not spoiled at all. That's just the way that's in his husbandry manual. So Gunner, Diane's going to be very very happy that she got to see you. um, so no, Bonnie, again, if you're just now tuning in to these live stream sessions, we do cover a variety of different topics. We're always taking suggestions on different topics as well. But we cover things like medical care, general husbandry, training, enrichment, conservation. So many different aspects that factor in. So we definitely, hope that you guys check those out. If you visit the High Redbird YouTube channel, all of them are put together on a playlist. I stopped counting how many hours of content there is just in that one playlist. It is well over 60. I know, Diane. I moved his blanket. I am a horrible human being. Here you go, Gunner. Here you go. You want to go over there? Yeah, he'll make it work. um, all right. So that being said, that's just something to keep in mind. That yeah, somebody is probably going to refer to you as the crazy bird person at some point. That is just what happens. For some people, by virtue of having a parrot as a pet, that is enough to mark you the crazy bird person. So just be aware that that's probably going to happen. And when you're first getting a bird, you probably don't think that's going to happen. Um, Now, I did want to talk about the mimicry of parrots because mimicry, I feel, is one of the reasons that a lot of people get attention or their attention is drawn to parrots because of that mimicry. You see a bird, in a TikTok video or a YouTube video that's, doing a quick little training session, and they're blazing through 20 different behaviors where they can sound like a spaceship and a cow and a dog and a cat. And it's really, really exciting, but there's a little bit more that goes into the mimicry than a lot of people realize. And I think one of the most important things is they can be much better mimics than you are anticipating. My female eclectus parrot, Redbird, she would have entire conversations that I had had on the phone in my voice, to the point that my old roommate thought that I was home because she heard Redbird going through these conversations. Birds definitely learn things in a context. They will practice those vocalizations, and they are going to be far better at mimicking vocalizations. Even if you thought you knew what you were signing up for, you don't. It is otherworldly. And the other thing is, they have a talent for picking up vocalizations that you don't want them to pick up. One of the most annoying sounds to me is if that battery in your smoke detector gets low and it does that high pitched piercing beep to let you know the battery is low. I can almost guarantee if your bird hears that one time, that is going to be one of their favorite vocalizations. If you drop things and say a bad word, your bird is going to pick up that vocalization. I can almost guarantee it. Meanwhile, if you just want your bird to say hello, that can be something we're working on for a year. Danny, do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, what's interesting is that they're very efficient about the things that they learn, and they're observing all the time. And with our son Conyer, what shocked us, because she's a pretty good mimic. Son Conyers are not extraordinary talkers, but what she noticed is that every time our toaster oven beeped, we immediately went to the toaster oven. And so she figured that out. She's like, oh, if I go beep, 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 just like our toaster oven does when it's done, that's how I get their attention. And so she picked that up immediately, because she saw us move straight away. They're very efficient about what things they mimic. But it's also, and again, there are so much, all the scientists on here, I will just say that yes, this is anecdotal. It's not empirical, but it's shocking to me how much they can pick up in context and use in context. Like, just for instance, step up, which is something we say to our birds. We want them to step onto something. Well, our macaw has internalized that as to be, step up is to be with you, to be on you, to step up. And so that we communicate that way. It's a real form of communication. When he wants to come over to us, he says step up. When he wants us to pick him up, we told him, now he uses the same phrase to tell us he wants to come with us. It's in context, it's not random. And again, like I said, he's not going to learn to read Nietzsche, and he's not going to, give us a lecture on the works of Oliver Wilde or whatever, Oscar Wilde. But it's amazing that this species that is way far separated from us can in some rudimentary ways communicate with us. And I didn't realize. I always knew that, because what I learned is what you just say something over and over and over again, and then your parrot will speak it back to you. No, we never really did that with our birds, and they picked up the context. They saw what meanings could be inferred by phrases they could pull off, and they use them. It's crazy. It really shocked me. So
Right. And I think, Danny, you pointed out something really important there is we're bringing up all of these examples. A lot of these examples are just, anecdotal examples, things that we have experienced. But the science behind it is birds understand and they communicate in a context. So they can understand how to react to different situations. A lot of people who have things like dogs in the same house as their birds. I know people with birds who have learned how to call for the dogs to make them go one way or the other. I think your example of that sun conure who has learned that vocalization of your toaster oven to get you guys to come in, I think that really demonstrates something that we've talked about with training before. And I have made my views on this clear that as far as I am concerned, training, I very much disagree with the old school training approach that it's a way to impose your will on an animal to make them do stuff. To me, training is one of the closest ways of two-way communication we are going to have with a bird and with any animal. And we're training them, but they are also training us. So, that Sun Conure learned that I can do this vocalization. Now the question is that a behavior that the Sun Conure is doing, or is it now a cue that the Sun Conure is offering, and the behavior it's attempting to elicit is one of you then going in to the kitchen, and it gets a little bit convoluted to try to figure out. Wait, that's a behavior, but that behavior is also a cue for this behavior. And then that behavior that happens is actually a cue for this next behavior, this chain and effect that happens. It's not incredibly simple, but it's a great way that you can see that we are interacting with each other. We are making those decisions with each other. And that training aspect, I think, is really, really important, something that gets forgotten or overlooked when it comes to birds, that
But
they are
I,
so capable of training us.
yeah, it's almost like he was. It's funny because I'm in, if I'm trying to sort of be in my son Conyers mind, it was like of all the sounds in the whole house, of all the things we had ever observed and said and done, clearly in its mind that was the most powerful signal in the house because we never ignored it. We always went to that sound every single time, above any other sound, So it's funny. So
Now, one thing that I know Danny in particular wanted to talk about, and this is something that I fully agree with. This is something I have to talk about pretty much on a daily basis, the value of smaller parrots. Um, I think that a lot of times smaller parrots get discredited because they're not big, flashy parrots. People want that cockatoo, they want that macaw. And in my experience, things like cockatiels and, oh my god, budgies. Budgies to me are one of the most perfect little parrots. And I want to get little out of there. They are one of the most perfect parrots. They have a ton of personality. They're very, very smart. They can learn to work with you. They can mimic. They can learn to say so many different words. They can sing with you. They have a great personality. And because they're a smaller parrot, it is more cost effective to provide them a proportionately larger house and a proportionately greater variety of enrichment opportunities. It's easier to do because they're littler, but I feel like a lot of people discredit the small parrots. Danny, what do you think?
oh yeah, it's just a parakeet. I used to be one of those people. I started with a Sun Conure because I didn't want to get just a parakeet because everybody has a parakeet. I listen. I do not have more a feeling of amazement and wonder than when I am up at Blessington Farms and sitting in the aviary with 50 parakeets all swarming around me. They are shockingly remarkable and have so much personality. It's a shame that people discount them because they're so cheap, and because they're, a quote unquote starter bird. There's nothing starter about them. They are really extraordinary. I always come back to my parakeets. Um, I have two parakeets at home that were volunteers, and I am in awe of them every single day. There's a reason that they're like the most popular pet parrot in the world, and it's not just because they're
Yeah,
easy. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and I actually get quite a few people who don't even seem to realize that budgies are parrots. They
Right.
don't seem to think of them as parrots. They think of them as maybe, oh, it's a finch or it's a small songbird. But no, it is a small parrot. So all of those things that you like to see in a parrot, that trainability, that problem solving, that personality, you're going to see in those budgies. And um, I mean, you can keep talking about my aviary all you want, Danny, because I am incredibly proud of that aviary and the work that goes into those birds, because there is a little bit of work that goes into them. I go in and I work with those birds every single day, socializing those birds, getting them used to being around people, and they are so interactive. They have so much curiosity. They want to interact with people. When we get kids walking through that aviary, seeing that animal that directly wants to interact with them, uh, there are a lot of people who change their feelings on birds. Um, because I feel like some people discredit birds in general as a possibility for a pet or a possibility as a meaningful companion, because I really think that's what birds are. They're not just a pet. If you have birds in your life, especially parrots, they're something that you're interacting with so much that you're um, going to be building that relationship with, that it's just so different from pretty much anything else you might have encountered.
Yeah, and they, again, there's somebody just commented a few minutes ago that they're macaws stuffed in a little bitty body, and it really, I mean, there's a thing of, and I used to make this mistake too, but this idea that a smaller animal sometimes it means less complex behavior, and we're learning that that's not necessarily the case anymore. And certainly with budgies, there is so much cross pollination with the larger birds in those animals. They are just as spunky, and that's kind of the problem sometimes in mixed collections, is that they don't understand that they're not as big as that macaw. They think, well, look, I'm this tough bird. I can do whatever I want to and not get murdered by that macaw, but they think of themselves. Of course, I don't know what they're thinking, but they carry themselves in a way that does not belie their diminutive size at all. They're very complicated. They interact with you in very similar ways as the larger birds. About the only thing you can't do, there's something, just when you've got like a big green wing macaw, you can give them that big old handful head scritch. Uh, you can't really do that with a budgie, but otherwise, it's the same. It really is.
Yeah, and so this is all part of why. So Robin and I have talked about this. I'm pretty sure Danny is on the same page. Um, Robin and I don't like the term starter bird. And we feel the problem with starter bird is that it implies that there are some birds that don't need the same level of care. Um, and that's not true. Budgies and cockatiels, those smaller birds, the things that are usually recommended as your first bird, still are going to need that same level. You have to pay attention to their diet. You have to pay attention to their housing. You have to pay attention to their veterinary care. Uh, I am a little bit shocked at how many people don't think their budgies need to be seen by a veterinarian, that they don't need that proper level of care. But it also would probably explain why so many people are startled to realize that birds like budgies can easily live to be 15 to 20 years old.
Well, the one of those budgies in that picture there is 11, which is starting to get long in the tooth. But yeah, they can live a long time, and that's Dumpy and Buddy. Those are my two parakeets right there. You can see they have that lovely window perch there. Um, so yeah, no, they and I look. I have should be prepared to spend $1,000 on your budgie at the vet, just like you'd spend $1,000 on your macaw. It's they are, just because they're a $40 bird doesn't mean they're any less deserving of the same high standards of care. They're remarkable. So
Right. And so I think this all ties into the last point that we wanted to talk about. And this is something Danny and I have spoken about at length. And that is the attachment that you have to your birds. I think that has something to do with all of the different things that we have talked about tonight. They are so much smarter than you were expecting. They have so much more personality than you were expecting. Um, there can be challenges. They can be a little bit destructive. They can be a little bit messy, but you work on those challenges. You work on those challenges as a team. You figure out things that work for you and the bird that make it so that you can overcome those challenges. So you feel like you have this accomplishment between you and your bird. And when you factor all that in, I feel like it's a lot easier to develop a very in-depth connection with a bird. When you factor in also that these birds can live, significantly longer than something like a dog or a cat, I feel like that is part of it. It's a great thing that you get to build that relationship. But I will tell you guys right now that attachment can also make it very challenging if something happens to your bird, if you end up losing a bird. Um, that attachment is probably not something that you were expecting, or at least not expecting to the degree of which it happens.
uh, you know, it is much more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Because there is so much give and take. Like take Gunner for instance. Okay, well let's not pick on Gunner, but let's just say dogs. There's dogs and humans have evolved together for 20,000 years, 15, 20,000 years, and so there are some things about how we work together that are sort of very natural and almost come with almost as assumptions. And I'm not saying you don't have to work at it. Clearly, you've obviously worked very well with Gunner, but they sort of want to be a part. They want to do their part with you and your group and whatever. And birds don't. A flock is not a pack. And when you become a flock is more of this collection of spunky individuals, all sort of like coexisting to keep from getting murdered. And they want what they want. They want, they have their own agendas, and they don't necessarily line up with your agendas. And so you have to work with them. You have to find sort of a compromise living action, which becomes very complex and very deeply meaningful and very weighty. Sometimes annoying, sometimes exhausting, but ultimately very deep and very rewarding. Um, because you have to sort of come to a point of understanding each other and understanding each other's limits and understanding each other's sort of lines in the sand. And your bird learns that. I think birds, they will know how far they can push you, and they will push you right to that line. But it becomes there's a lot of give and take, that that is really fascinating, and I didn't realize it was going to be like that because my birds are exhausting. Like, look, I mean, they take. It's not just the cleaning. That's the thing. It's not just the cleaning. It's not just the husbandry and stuff. No, you have to interact, and it's the sort of peacemaking and the way you sort of cooperate to live together that I didn't really know what it was going to be like. And I'm so glad that I have. It changed my life completely. My life would have taken a different track had I not gotten into birds. And I'm grateful for the impact they have had. And it's been for me it's like it's a little bit like being an explorer. I feel privileged every day that I get to be close to this extraordinary alien being that somehow has decided that it wants to sit with me and watch TV. And I am humbled and and overjoyed to be able to do that. I didn't know that was what it was going to be like. It's a remarkable thing.
Right. And again, to make it clear, none of the things we've talked about tonight, they're not, you can't divide it into good and bad. Um, there's, this idea of that attachment, it's just something you have to be aware of. Things like that training, they're just things that you have to be aware of. So that attachment to your birds, we have so many people that are commenting and remarking that that is, it relieves their stress and it adds value to their life. And that is most definitely going to be true. Um, but the thing we wanted to drive home on this is just that degree of attachment is probably more than you were expecting if you are watching this live stream or you watch this video later and are thinking about getting a bird as a pet. That interaction is what makes it worth it. It's what fosters that attachment, but it is going to be an animal that you are more attached to probably than you were expecting. Um, so I think that's just really, really important to point out. And on Danny's, last little thing that he mentioned, I think the really important thing that people can do is make sure that you're enjoying your birds. And there are so many different ways that you can do that, even when you're doing things like cleaning out that cage. And I know a lot of times it can feel like that's all you're doing. It can feel like all you're doing is cleaning that cage and changing out food bowls and cleaning that cage. But you get to talk to your bird while you're doing that. And I have so many conversations with my birds throughout the day. I have running conversations going with different birds at different times. Finding those ways to make sure that you're enjoying this absolutely incredible animal that is in your house, I think, is really, really important. And it's one of the things that, makes it worth it. Danny, what do you think?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, with all of those manual chores, what I always tell myself is they didn't ask to be here. I did that. So yeah, I got to clean up after them. They don't do this normally. They don't have to tidy up. They're used to living up in the trees. Uh, yeah, it becomes complex and rewarding and exhausting. Um, but for me, it's a learning experience. I feel privileged to love and learn from them as much as they, can learn things from me. And I, again, like I've said in other times together, write it down. Write down these wonderful stories. Write down these wonderful things that you learn because you never know when somebody might want to hear about them because we don't know what the future holds for all these animals. We don't, sometimes the pet trade is the best hope we have for keeping some of these guys around. And yeah, love it, learn it, live it, write it down.
Danny, would you like to tell us about uh, what you are referencing there?
So if he'll put it back up, I'll say. So yeah. Anyway, I'm just talking. I always bring up Doodles. Doodles was a companion Carolina conure that was owned by Paul Barch, and he wrote a journal. He had and he says, oh, in the journal we would go outside and do these things together, and all these other stories which I'm sure you don't want to hear about. And that's it. And it's like when I was reading his journal, I just about flipped out because I was like, no, I do want to know what it was about, but we won't know because he didn't write it down. So, write your stuff down.
Right. And I mean, there's so many different ways that you can share those stories, that you can share what makes the bird keeping and what makes having birds in our life meaningful. We had Lori mentioning that, tonight was a really heartfelt night, and she, realizes what she appreciates with her birds, what she loves with her birds. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, there are some days um, you're you're not going to appreciate everything as much as you you should, or as much as you would ideally want to, and that happens, and that is fine. Oh, yeah. Um, but what I'm going to encourage you guys to do, um, you know, we've seen all these stories, all the ways that these birds have a great impact on our lives. They make us better people. They help us learn so many different things. Try to remember that and try to focus on that. You don't necessarily you're not every day is not going to be the best day, but you can focus on finding ways to make everything a little bit better, finding ways to cherish that relationship, to appreciate that relationship. So I think that's all really important. The topics that we covered tonight, none of them are awful things. None of these are, oh, these are terrible things that are going to happen if you get a parrot. Rather, the topics we covered are things you just probably wouldn't realize are going to happen, or are going to happen to the extent that even if you research them, and always do your research, um, they probably weren't going to happen like that. But if you guys have photos and videos of your birds that you want to share, sharing those on social media can make it so that other people can see you have that animal, and here's how that relationship with this animal goes. That's why Robin and I both, share things to like our Instagram, to let you guys see what kind of animals we're working with, what kind of for Robin, what kind of enrichment she is preparing for so many different animals. If you log into the live stream that we do every single Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, if you're watching this video on YouTube later, adding to the comments what you found the most valuable, what applied to you and your bird. All of those are going to be different ways that you can document your experiences and make those experiences relevant and and manageable for other people.
We're
You
documenting
can also
experiences.
we're documenting experiences. Oh, thank you for that little bit of a segue, Nick. For a second there, I was like, what is going on? So no, so Robin is actually the butterfly donut princess now. I don't know what's going on in that photo exactly, but she is having fun. She is visiting family right now for the holidays. So again, that's why Robin is not here this week. But we are lucky enough to have Mr. Daniel Sigmund. Um, Now, Danny is, and I probably should have talked about this at the beginning. Danny is a regular speaker and contributor for things like the National Parrot Rescue and Preservation Foundation's Parrot Festival. He has spoken numerous times for the American Federation of Aviculture for their annual conference. He has spoken numerous times for Seattle Parrot Expo. He has spoken for bird clubs and groups all around the world. He has done presentations for groups in Germany in German, which to me is just very, very cool. Danny, one of his favorite things to say is that he is just a guy. And I think there is value there because I think it does let people know that even if you are just a person, there are things that you can do to help educate people, to help draw that science to the forefront. That being said, after going over Danny's resume, I think we can all agree that Danny is a little bit more than just a guy when it comes to speaking about parrots. So, on that note, Danny, is there anything else you'd like us to end with tonight?
Uh, just, I guess, always look for the opportunity to learn, whether it's about your bird or from your bird. There's always something new, and it's awesome. Even when they, even when it's not always, even when it's ugly, sometimes you learn something. So,
Well, I think, tonight has been a really great conversation. We have so many people contributing to the comment section. And we definitely try to keep this a, dynamic conversation. We want to make sure that we have that dialogue with you guys, that it's not just us sending our opinions to you, but that, your opinions are getting voiced and we're seeing those as well. Because I think it's what helps us to build a much stronger avian community. So for everyone who has watched tonight for the live stream, for everyone who watches later as a video, I do just want to say thank you for being a part of our community. We're very, very excited for everything that we have built so far and eager to see where it continues to grow. Now, just a little bit of a heads up. Again, if you would like to rewatch any of the live streams that we have done, you can go ahead and subscribe to the High Redbird YouTube channel. There's a playlist there. There's actually numerous playlists. So if you want things like the live streams that Robin and I do, if you want toy tutorials, if you want training, if you would like the Avian Advent Calendar, uh, a, a toy tutorial, DIY construction every single day of the Advent Calendar. Um, oh, oh, I haven't looked at it in that layout. It's a lot of red and green, Nick. Uh, it's been a lot of work, but a lot of people are getting a lot of value out of it, and that is why I do it and why we put it together. So thank you guys so much. Now, we actually will not be live next Friday or the Friday after because those fall on holidays, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Um, but I'm going to let you guys know that we are going to have a special treat for you guys for next Friday for Christmas Eve. Hopefully, something you'll really, really enjoy. And for New Year's Eve, we're going to be talking to a variety of different people. We'll have a video that can go up for you guys. We want you to start thinking about your goals and New Year's resolutions when it comes to working with your birds. So, if anybody would like to contribute to that, go ahead, send me a message over on Facebook. We would love to hear from you guys. We would love to share with everyone else what you are planning to do because sometimes people don't even realize what is an option until they see somebody else doing it or hear the plans of somebody else. Danny, do you have any plans, goals, or resolutions for your birds for the coming year?
um, husbandry training. I need to do more of that. It's important, and I have been during the pandemic. Everything just sort of slacked, including my waistline and my training regimens. So gotta reinforce the husbandry stuff.
Right. That is definitely something really good to focus on. Um, and I certainly hope that'll help get people thinking. So you definitely want to make sure we're here every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, if you have not liked the Leather Elves page on Facebook, you guys want to make sure you do that. That'll give you a notification whenever we do a live stream. You can also join the High Redbird group on Facebook because all of the live streams are shared there as well. The Leather Elves is Robin's page, the High Redbird group is my page. So there's two different places that you can find that information. But again, I want to thank you guys so much for making this an absolutely phenomenal evening. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Everyone, take care.